Build-to-rent communities expanding in Florida, what the trend means for buyers, renters, and homeowners. Florida's housing market is entering a new phase. While much of the conversation over the past several years has focused on rising prices, limited inventory, and insurance pressures, another shift has been quietly reshaping neighborhoods across the state: the rapid expansion of build-to-rent communities. Once a niche concept, build-to-rent developments are now appearing from suburban Orlando to the Gulf Coast, including parts of Pinellas County. These communities consist of newly constructed single-family homes or townhomes designed specifically for long-term rental rather than for sale buyers. For homeowners, investors, and prospective buyers, the implications are significant. What is a build-to-rent community? A build-to-rent, often abbreviated BTR, is a residential development where the homes are constructed with the intent of being leased rather than sold individually. Unlike traditional apartment complexes, these properties typically feature detached houses or townhomes with private yards, garages, and community amenities such as pools, fitness centers, or walking trails. In many cases, an institutional investor or national homebuilder retains ownership of the entire community and manages it as a professionally operated rental neighborhood. The model gained traction after the Great Recession, when large investment firms began purchasing single-family homes at scale. Today, instead of acquiring scattered properties, many are choosing to build entire rental subdivisions from the ground up. Why build-to-rent is expanding in Florida? Several factors are fueling the growth of build-to-rent communities across Florida. Persistent affordability challenges. Home prices surged across much of the state between 2020 and 2023. Although the pace of appreciation has moderated, elevated mortgage rates and high insurance premiums continue to limit purchasing power for many households. For renters who want the space and privacy of a single-family home but are not ready or able to buy, build-to-rent communities offer an alternative. Population growth and migration. Florida remains one of the fastest-growing states in the country. New residents relocating for employment, retirement, or lifestyle reasons often prefer to rent before committing to a purchase. Purpose-built rental neighborhoods allow them to test a market without long-term ownership risk. Institutional capital seeking stability. Large investment groups view Florida as a long-term growth market. By constructing rental homes in concentrated communities, they can streamline property management, reduce maintenance inefficiencies, and create predictable income streams. In a state where hurricane risk and insurance volatility complicate ownership decisions, professionally managed rental housing can be attractive to both operators and tenants. The impact on local housing supply. The expansion of build-to-rent raises an important question: does it ease or intensify inventory shortages? On one hand, these developments add new housing units to the market, which can relieve pressure in fast-growing regions. In areas of Central Florida and the Tampa Bay region, new construction has helped offset years of undersupply. On the other hand, because the homes are not offered for sale, they do not increase the inventory available to prospective buyers. In supply-constrained counties such as Pinellas, where land is limited and redevelopment often replaces older homes, some housing advocates argue that prioritizing rental-only projects can reduce opportunities for homeownership. In Pinellas County specifically, land scarcity makes large-scale suburban-style build-to-rent communities less common than in inland counties. However, smaller clusters of rental townhomes and infill developments are beginning to appear, particularly in areas with strong job access and commuter convenience. How build-to-rent affects home values. For nearby homeowners, the presence of a build-to-rent community can have mixed effects. Professionally managed properties with consistent maintenance standards may support neighborhood aesthetics and stability. In some cases, they introduce upgraded infrastructure and amenities that enhance surrounding property values. However, concentration of rental housing can also raise concerns among existing residents about long-term community engagement and turnover rates. Market data suggests that well-planned rental communities do not inherently depress home values, particularly when design quality aligns with neighboring subdivisions. The key variable is integration. Developments that blend architecturally and maintain consistent upkeep tend to coexist without measurable negative impact. A shift in the American homeownership path. Perhaps the most significant consequence of the build-to-rent trend is cultural rather than financial. For decades, the single-family home represented a clear step toward ownership. Today, that pathway is less linear. Many households are choosing flexibility over permanence, especially in regions vulnerable to climate risk and insurance volatility. In coastal counties such as Pinellas, where flood zones and rising premiums shape buyer decisions, some residents are opting to rent high-quality homes while reassessing long-term commitments. Build-to-rent communities provide that option. At the same time, first-time buyers may find themselves competing not only with other individuals, but with large capital groups influencing land use decisions at the development stage. What buyers, sellers, and renters should consider. For renters, build-to-rent communities offer the space of a house without the maintenance burden. Lease terms, rent escalation clauses, and renewal policies should be reviewed carefully, as corporate operators often use standardized agreements. For potential buyers, understanding how many nearby properties are rental-owned can provide insight into neighborhood stability and resale dynamics. For sellers, proximity to a professionally maintained rental development may not be detrimental, particularly if local housing demand remains strong. In markets like Pinellas County, where housing choices are constrained by geography, the long-term balance between rental expansion and ownership opportunities will continue to shape pricing and community composition. The broader outlook. Build-to-rent is no longer a fringe concept. It represents a structural shift in how housing is delivered and financed in Florida. As population growth persists and economic conditions evolve, these communities are likely to remain part of the housing landscape. The key question is not whether build-to-rent will expand, but how it will integrate into established neighborhoods and how it will influence the future of homeownership in the state. For Florida residents, the trend underscores a larger reality. The definition of residential living is changing, and the housing market is adapting accordingly.